Okay guys, so we're gonna talk about foot stability on top of the mound as we're getting ready to release our pitch, as we're getting ready to lift our leg up, or we're just standing here getting ready to start a delivery. So as you can see right now, my foot is up and down, the pressure's coming up, I'm in front of the mound, I come set. So when I come set, I wanna see that sensor map right down there. I wanna see it as still as possible and not really moving too much like you see right now. So a lot of the times the movement comes from our leg lift. So if I were to do this correctly, my leg would come up and I wouldn't have too much movement in there right there. Do it again, leg comes up, and that map stays pretty much exactly the same. Now a lot of the times when you're doing lessons or maybe you're even working on your own game, people tend to lift their heel up or bounce back and forth on that foot as they come up, showing a little bit of instability. So something like that would look like this. I would come up, and you can see that map is really starting to move, right? The sensors are bouncing back and forth. You can see a little bit of red, some green, some blue, right? Things that this can cause that aren't good is, we talked earlier about our stride direction. So just for an example, if I were to come up, and let's say that I were to really put a lot of weight on my toe. I come up, I'm on my toe. Before I even start my delivery, I'm already presetting myself to be closed as I go down the mound because all of my weight is starting to transfer on the front part of my foot. Now, without the sensor mound, it'd be very difficult to lift your leg up and see even a little bit of increase of elevation from that heel. However, looking at the actual sensor, we can see that all my weight is on my toe right now. If you're looking in the video from over there, it probably looks like my foot is completely flat on the mound, okay? Now, somebody who, let's say, spends a lot of time on their heel, we would come up. As I come back, all of my weight is starting to go towards the back part of my foot. So that's pre-directing myself as an open delivery, right? We talked about that hip flying wide open, going down the mound. Another thing that I like to look at is how much is my foot staying connected as I go down the mound. Okay guys, so here we're looking at the vertical force map. Right here shows when I'm getting ready to deliver the pitch and I'm coming set to my delivery. So as you can see, there's a little bit of movement right here, but there's not too much. So overall, I'm pretty stable on my back foot as my leg starts to come up. Now, as I go down the mound slightly, you can see that there's a little bit more pressure involved on the rubber of myself actually pushing off of the mound. As we go down a little bit further, keep going, you can see that it still stays at that baseline mark of how stable I was or how much pressure I was actually putting into that plate before I was throwing the pitch. Now, as I start to deliver the pitch and I go down the mound, you can see that my pressure drops significantly. That's due to the fact that I'm actually leaving the rubber to get to my strike foot. Now, the green line that you see right here is our strike foot. So down here we see there's absolutely no pressure whatsoever, and that's due to the fact that my strike foot was still all the way up at the top of the mound. As I go down the mound and that pressure starts to drop, all of a sudden you see that green line spike straight up. If you guys can see right here, it's almost like an X, right? We see the orange line start to go down and we see the green line start to go up. This part right here is showing me that I still have, if we look down here, pressure by the rubber as well as pressure when I land. So a lot of the times when you're looking at this information, you almost see this little sensor right here disappear before this one even comes up. You might see very little pressure down here, or you might see a ton of pressure. This is gonna go ahead and tell you right here. So I have about maybe a little less than half the amount of pressure on the rubber as I did when I started my delivery. Now, once that green line hits and I see that cross, the pressure on the mound doesn't matter anymore. Now I'm all worried about delivering my pitch and keeping my momentum and keeping my pressure or my weight going through that strike foot. You can see that strike foot shoots up and becomes pretty much the same amount of force as it was when I started the mound. So that's telling me that the force that I started with before I delivered the pitch, I ended up getting to with my strike foot when I hit it at the bottom of the mound. Now, that is going to start to dwindle down a little bit, and that's because of the fact that a lot of that force that was initially put into that foot on the sensor is starting to get directed towards home plate, which is why you see that line start to go down a little bit. Now, if that line were to completely disappear and go straight down, that's almost like I'm flying at the target and I'm throwing my body towards home plate, which definitely is not what we're looking for. Now, if you saw this green line kind of plateau up here and show absolutely zero sign of decrease, that's telling me that there's probably a lot of energy that was left on the table that I didn't deliver towards home plate and rather delivered straight into the ground.